Hey friends, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing some book reviews, spoiler free to the best of my ability, of some books that I have read recently. So I have 7 books that I've read over the last month or so. I don't know the last time I did this video. I'm not doing them every month right now because I was in a bit of a reading slump for a few months, but I feel like I'm getting over that and I'm getting back into reading. So hopefully hopefully I can start doing these once a month again, but I'm just going to do them whenever I feel like I have enough books to talk about. And over the 4th of July, I read 3 books. So my number quickly shot up and I'm getting out of that kind of mid-year reading slump. So today I have 7 books to share with you. Most of them are like mystery thriller, and one of them is just general fiction. I have some new novels that just came out over the last few months that I read, and I'm excited to dive into all the books that I have been reading recently. So the first book, and I have my computer here with my Goodreads pulled up, so if you see me looking off to the side, I use Goodreads to track all of my reading, to rank everything. I have been using Goodreads for years, and there's Rip. So I pretty much know every single book that I have read over the last 10 plus years, which is really interesting to go back and look and see what I was reading in college and, you know, just various times in my life. So the first book is We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinborough. So this is in mystery thriller, kind of gothic thriller genre. This is about a couple, Emily and Freddie. They move from London into this country home, and this country home is called Larkin Lodge. I feel like every time a house has some sort of name to it, normally creepy things happen in this house. Emily has some health conditions. She's recovering from an injury, and she starts noticing some odd things happening in the house. The temperature is very different between her and her husband. Like, her husband thinks it's really hot, she thinks it's really cold, or vice versa. I can't remember which direction. She's hearing floorboards creak. Just, she feels a presence. And it's kind of just blamed on her recovering from her illness, and she's not really believed. But she starts to try to figure out who she thinks is haunting the house, and she believes that it's haunted by somebody who was previously murdered. So it's really about Emily trying to figure out what's going on in this house, convincing her husband of what is going on, and just kind of the house having its own secrets. This was good. I ranked it a 3 out of 5 stars. Nothing to write home about for me, but it was a good horror haunted house type of novel. If you like Darcy Coates, you probably would really like this book. Or if you just like the haunted house type of idea. And I'm going to mention this later, probably the last book I talk about, because it was my most recent read. I'm starting from the furthest to the soonest. I want a horror book. Like I said, I'll say this again at the end when I talk about my last book. I want a horror novel that is not paranormal or haunting or spooky like that in any way. I want a horror novel where it's just like a serial killer. Where are those books? If you know of any really good recommendations, please leave them in the comments. I struggle with this with movies too. I love horror movies. They are my favorite genre. I love kind of the adrenaline rush that you get from a horror movie. I think they're fun. But the ones that I like the best and the ones that spook me are the serial killers, the stalkers, those types of things happening, because it feels realistic. Like, this really could happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, this could happen to somebody. This does happen to people. And so that kind of is what, I sound like a crazy person. That kind of what triggers that little bit of an adrenaline rush when I'm watching horror movies. If it's paranormal or things like that, or such a far stretch, it doesn't have the same effect on me, because I'm like, okay, that is never going to happen. So I really like that with books too. Like, I want just a classic spooky novel that's not in fantasy world, that's not paranormal. There's no haunted house. You know what I mean? If you know of any good book recommendations that you feel would fit that bill of what I'm describing, please leave them in the comments down below, because I start a book thinking they're one thing, and then there's always some sort of twist that they're not quite what I was anticipating it being. In any case, this was a good book, and I went into this book thinking it probably was, it was haunted house based, but just something I'm thinking about as I read some of these horror novels. So this was good. I ranked it a 3 out of 5 stars. Nothing to write home about, but if you like haunted house types of novels, you probably would really enjoy it. The next book I read is First Wife's Shadow by Adele Parks. So this is about a woman named Emma. Emma works this really high-powered corporate job. I think she's a VP of some big company. She has a lot of money, and she's in her 40s, and she is single, never been married, doesn't have any children. She meets Matthew. Matthew is a very handsome younger man. He's in his 30s, but he doesn't have any money. They start this relationship, and the relationship moves very quickly. She and him move in together very fast. They get married very quickly, and this relationship just develops at a high speed. Now, Matthew is a widow. He had a first wife that died because she fell off of a ladder and hit her head. Emma's friends are kind of concerned about this man because he has no money. They got married very quick. Is he just using Emma for his money? And so, she's got her friends that are kind of coming at her from one angle, and Matthew coming at her from a different angle. Emma is worried about, would Matthew even be with me if it wasn't for his first wife passing away? And so she starts having some kind of darker, crazy thoughts. Things are happening at her house that she can't explain, and she doesn't know who's responsible. Is it her friends? Is it Matthew? This was really, really good. And this took a twist halfway through the book, and it went a different direction where I was like jaw on the floor. Oh my gosh, not expecting it. And I love when books do that. The twist didn't wait until the end. There was a twist halfway through the novel, and then like what you thought you knew and then what actually was going on were completely opposite, at least for me. I've read enough thriller novels that's a lot of times I can figure out, at least to some extent, what the twist is. Not always, but a lot of times I can be like, okay, I think it has something to do with this person, or I think it has to do with this situation. But I had not a clue with this one. And so I love books like that when I can be really surprised by the twist. And like I said, the twist happened much earlier on in this book than I was anticipating. I loved this. I thought this was fantastic. I gave this a 4 stars. 4 out of 5. So a really, really good book. Not the best I've ever read, but one that I really enjoyed and would highly recommend if you're into mystery thriller. I was frustrated with Emma a lot in this book, and you wanted to be her big sister a few times and just yell at her and be like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? So this book definitely had a lot of emotion in that way, but this was really fun, very twisty, a very fast-paced read, and I really enjoyed it. A book that is not so new, but I finally got to read it, is The Mist by Stephen King. So this is actually a novella. It's not a book. It's about 150 pages, and I listened to this on audiobook. I loved this. And I mean, I've never seen The Mist. Obviously, this is very popular. There's a movie, right? There's a movie about The Mist. Is there TV shows too? I don't even know. But I had never read it. And I don't read tons of Stephen King, but I do enjoy him a lot as an author. in doses. Stephen King has a very interesting, unique way of writing, and he's brilliant, but I have to take his writing sometimes in small doses and spread them out. But I do like to pick up Stephen King every couple months or so and read something new from him that I have not read, because I mean, he's got so many books. There's a lot I have not read. This was really, really good. This was beyond my expectations. I didn't know what I was expecting from this because I really didn't know much about this, but this was much better than I had thought it would be. So this is about a family who, they have a house on a lake, and one day a storm rolls in, and it's a big storm. Like, trees are going through windows. It's a crazy storm. So the next day, husband and wife, a son. The next day they get up and there's this nice little fog, this mist kind of floating over some areas of the town, and it is encroaching on their house. Now they kind of notice it. They don't think anything too crazy about it. I mean, like I said, it just stormed. The weather is being kind of weird, and the husband and the son go off to the store in town. They don't have power. They go off to the store in town to get some food, some supplies. The line is out the door when they're at the grocery store. Very, very long. Well, as they're in the grocery store, the mist encloses them. And the mist is not just a mist. There are creatures in there that are killing people when they leave the store. So it's this battle of the individuals inside of the grocery store trying to figure out what to do, how to escape, what these creatures are. And the ending of this book kind of leaves things a little bit up for interpretation. Like, it's not a clean cut ending. You don't really know, you know a little bit about what happens, but you don't really know like the final ending to this. And I normally don't like books like that because I like a finality. I like knowing what happens at the end. I can close that chapter, but I kind of liked that this one was a little bit more open-ended. And that made it spooky. That made it extra spooky. This was really, really good. I liked them trying to figure out what to do, what these creatures are. You kind of put yourself in that situation and think, if this was me, what the heck would I do? Really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. A quick read. Like I said, it's like 150, 200 page novella, but just was kind of a fun, spooky summer read. And it was perfect for the summer. Like I said, they had the lake house, the big storm. And I don't know about where you are, but this spring and summer, as far as storms, have been crazy. We've had, I don't know the exact number, but more tornadoes in the last year here than we've had in like many years combined. It's just been a really weird weather summer. And so it just kind of added to the spookiness of this novella. So The Mist, loved, highly recommend. And like I said, I would give this 4 out of 5 stars. So the next 3 books I have to talk about are some of my like most anticipated reads of 2025. These are all new novels. And so I was really excited to read all 3 of them. The first one is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. If you have not read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, you gotta do it. You have to. Start with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Try that book. It is unbelievable. But all of her books after that are just as good. I gave this book a 5 stars. Now, Taylor Jenkins Reid for me is kind of on a similar level of author as Kristen Hanna. If you like Kristen Hanna, I think you would like Taylor Jenkins Reid. They're not the same in writing. Like, Kristen Hanna's obviously got a lot of historical fiction, but Taylor Jenkins Reid, there's some historical fiction aspects to a lot of her novels. She definitely has to do quite a bit of research for some of her novels, and They're a little bit more family dynamic, romance, kind of drama, just general fiction and not so much historical fiction. But I would compare those authors very, very strongly in their writing style, just in the research that they have to do. Very intricate novels. So if you like Kristen Hanna, if you haven't tried Taylor Jenkins Reid, I implore you, please, please do. So Atmosphere was her newest novel, and the second this book came out, I was like, I have to read this immediately. This is about a woman named Joan in the early 80s, and she gets selected to go to, I don't even know what it's called, astronaut school, whatever program, NASA has that you have to do before you potentially can go into space. So it's about her applying and how hard she has to work in that to potentially get the opportunity to go to space, and just the work that astronauts have to do to be able to do that. I mean, I knew that I knew a little bit about it, but it really details everything that goes into NASA and becoming an astronaut. And especially in the early 80s, when women weren't doing those things, there kind of was a race for the first woman to go up into space. Some LGBT relationships in this book, and back in the early 80s, kind of a no-no in society. NASA didn't want anything like that to be out in public because of the scrutiny, and so all of it was very hush-hush. So essentially it's about Joan not only getting to NASA, trying to become an astronaut, and that process. It's also about this relationship that she forms with this woman, and it's about the relationship that Joan forms with friends, her sister and her niece. There's a large family dynamic part of this story. Her and her sister don't have a great relationship. Joan helps take care of her niece, and so there really is that kind of really intense family dynamic in not a great way. I could not recommend this book enough. And this is one of those books that at the end, the last 50 pages, you're going to be crying. If you're a crier in any novels, the last 50 pages or so, this will do it for you. Could not recommend this book enough. 5 stars. One of the best books I have read. Definitely this year. I don't think I've given too many books 5 stars, but one of my favorites from Taylor Jenkins Reid in general. Like I said, I loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I love Daisy Jones and the Six, and this one I probably would rank 3rd underneath that. This was so good. And just talking about space, that was really interesting to me. Would you guys ever want to go up into space? I say that's a hard pass. Like, I have not a desire in my body for anything like that to ever happen. So I implore the individuals for our country that do go up into space, but that would not, I would not do well in that scenario. I don't think I need to see Earth from that view. That's just me though. Okay, the next one was Kill Your Darlings by Peter Swanson. Peter Swanson is another one of my favorite authors. He is an auto-read author for me, same as Taylor Jenkins Reid and same as the next author I'm going to talk about. I love The Kind Worth Killing from Peter Swanson. He's had quite a lot of other books that I've read. Some I haven't liked as much, and then some I absolutely love. And so when I saw that he was coming out with a new novel, I was giddy about it. And I've really gone back and forth on this one about what I should rate this book. And I've gone between 3 and 4 stars. And I think I need to lean on 3, if I'm even thinking at all that it might be a 3 stars. Because this one, it's based as a mystery thriller, suspense novel. But I didn't find that there was actually too much mystery thriller suspense in this book. This is about Tom and Wendy. They are a married couple, and The story is told in reverse. So it starts in, present day. I think it starts in 2023, but, present day. And Wendy is wanting to kill Tom. And she's kind of plotting how to do it, pros and cons of it. And Wendy and Tom have some sort of nefarious past from years ago. They're holding some secret that only the two of them know. And so you don't know what that secret is in the beginning of the book. But essentially what it does, 2023 is when it starts, and then it just starts moving back in time. And it tells you snippets of Wendy and Tom's life during each of those subsequent years until you kind of figure out what their secret is, what they did, and, yeah, essentially that's it. I kind of was, I felt like I was being told a story of Wendy and Tom's life, and it wasn't as much as a mystery thriller as I would have liked it to be. I wish that it would have, once it got to the event, jumped back to present day, but it didn't. It never went back to present day. It always just went in reverse, and you ended in like the early 90s or maybe the 80s or something like that. So while it was good and I enjoyed the book and I enjoyed what was being told to me, there wasn't as much of a mystery thriller aspect to it, that I was like on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what happened next. I almost felt like I was being told a story, and it was a good story, and I enjoyed that story. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I was going back between 3 and 4 stars, but I think I need to hit 3. I need to rank this one 3, because there just wasn't anything that was like drawing me in to wanting to know what happened next. Like I said, that thriller aspect wasn't really there for me. So I think I need to give it a 3 stars. I don't know. Any of these books, have you guys recommended them? Have you guys read them? And if so, would you recommend them? What did you think of them? Still love Peter Swanson. Like I said, he's one of my auto-buy authors. I have to see what he's doing whenever he brings out new books. And there have been many novels from him that I absolutely love. But this one just kind of was in the middle. Riley Sager's newest novel, With a Vengeance. So Riley Sager is also kind of an auto-read author for me. He's one that I have kind of a very touch and go relationship with. Sometimes I really enjoy his books, sometimes I don't. And there are aspects of his writing that I do really enjoy, and then there are some aspects that I don't. This overall, I gave a 4 stars. I really liked it, but something with Riley Sager's endings, he just doesn't end a book well. And I would say that for pretty much any book that he has written. He gets to a place with his novels toward the end where I feel like he doesn't know how to finish them. Instead of having 1 or 2 just really good, juicy twists, he's got 10 different things going on. This happened and this happened. Well, this person killed that person. And it's too much. It's too much. It makes it unbelievable that all of these things were going on, and I just don't connect with that near as much as just having like 1 or 2 really good twists. And that's how I felt about this one. I loved this book up until the last like 75 pages where everything was coming out, and then I was like, what? No. What are you doing? There were too many things going on. And I need to know that's just how he writes, because I have felt that way about many of his novels, that I get to the end and I'm like, what is this ending? And I still really liked it. I gave this book a 4 stars, but I just wish he would calm down on the twist at the end a little bit, because it just makes it, I don't have that shell shock kind of like when a really good twist hits you, because I can't even believe what's happening because there's 47 things happening. You know what I mean? So I don't love that about this book, or just really his books in general. This book is about this woman named Anna, and this is set in the 1950s. Anna's family was essentially destroyed. Her brother was killed in a train accident. Her father was sent to prison for it. He was the one that was blamed for this train accident, this train explosion. He gets sent to prison, and her father is killed in prison. Her mother, in her grief, ends her life. And so Anna has lost her whole family, and she's out for a vengeance. She wants to avenge her family's death. She wants the people responsible for the explosion, her father's death, her mother's suicide. She wants them to pay. So she puts all of these people on a train from Philadelphia to Chicago overnight. And of course, things happen. Somebody ends up dead, and then it's a whole whodunit. This really reminds me of Agatha Christie, and then there were none, and then like Agatha Christie Murder on the Orient Express. If you want that type of feel on a train, people are showing up dead, but you don't know who's doing it. There's poison. It's like a classic Clue type of game. And like I said, this was set back in the 1950s, and so it gives me old school murder mystery vibes. I loved the setting of the train. I loved that kind of Agatha Christie homage that this novel made me feel. Loved all of that. It was a really fun book. Twists and turns, and not knowing who to trust and not knowing what to expect. And sometimes you felt for Anna because her whole family just has been killed, and she's alone, and you're with her wanting to get revenge on these people. And then sometimes I'm like, Anna, what the heck are you doing? This is terrible. Why would you put all these people on a train? You know, just your emotions kind of get pulled in multiple ways. But I thought this was a really fun read. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, gave it a 4 stars, but the ending is just a little too much for me. Okay, and then the last book that I've read over the last month or so, again, send me your serial killer recommendations, because that's the type of book that I want. This is Sleep Tight by J.H. Markert. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I should have known. It says, if you are fans of Katarina Ward, and I should have known because she writes very interesting kind of paranormal novels. That should have been my sign. I thought I was getting a serial killer book, and I felt like I was until the last 75 pages of this. This is about, how to even describe this? This is a complex book. This is about this priest named Father Silence, who isn't really a priest, and he was a serial killer, and he kidnapped and killed children. He is caught, put into jail, and then later executed. Years ago. Fast forward, right after he's executed, somebody starts kidnapping children again, and copies the whole priest persona, and is targeting very specific people that were originally involved in the case. So like the detectives that, you know, originally discovered the man and arrested him, and all of that. Very, very targeted. Well, the one daughter, Tess, she is the daughter of the detective that originally arrested the serial killer. Tess's daughter, Julia, gets kidnapped by this copycat person. And so it's essentially a race to try to find Julia and try to kind of unravel the mystery of the serial killer and put together pieces of what happened in the past in order to figure out where Julia is and where he's holding her. This book had so much potential because this was creepy, this was fast-paced, and I would say 60 to 70% of the book I loved because it was exactly what I was looking for. This really creepy, you know, serial killer trying to piece together what happened back then book. And then you got about 70% in, and it took a turn. It got so confusing at the end. There's a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of personality disorders. Personality disorders are a huge part of this book, and it got to be so complex and unbelievable and just weird. None of it made sense, and I got to the end of this book thinking, I don't know if I even know what really happened, because it was so far-fetched and just, you couldn't believe what you were reading because it didn't make any logical sense. That's why I say what I say, like, please just give me like a straightforward, I don't want paranormal, I don't want, you know, anything like that. I want just like a straightforward book that's just scary. Do you know any books like that? Please leave them in the comments down below. So the last 30% or so was so bad for me that this would have been like a 4-star read, and I bumped it down to a 2. Nope, would not recommend. And I got to the point where I was like, I cannot wait for this book to be done because I was so frustrated with just how weird the ending was and how it made no logical sense. And especially because the first, 60-70% of the book were so good that the last little bit was so bad that the good part didn't even matter anymore. You know what I mean? Not a book for me. If you like a twisty ending that is unbelievable, or you can't fully understand, if you like those kind of far-fetched endings, if those don't bother you, and if you like horror, you probably would really love this book. This was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Reader's Favorite Horror last year in 2024. So a lot of people like it. It was a little too weird at the end for me to really enjoy. But that is the last book. Those are all the books that I have read probably over the last month or so since I filmed this video. I would love to know what your favorite book over the last few weeks has been. If I had to pick, I would say Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That was amazing. I highly, highly recommend. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I will see you hopefully in about a month for my next book video. Bye.